From the PEP Radio Newsroom, these are the stories we are following at this hour. Israel's defense minister threatened Iran's supreme leader on Thursday after Iranian missiles damaged a hospital in southern Israel and hit residential buildings near Tel Aviv, wounding at least 240 people. Israel, meanwhile, struck a heavy water reactor linked to Iran's nuclear program. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz blamed Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and said the military has been instructed and knows that in order to achieve all of its goals, this man absolutely should not continue to exist. U.S. officials said earlier this week that President Donald Trump had vetoed an Israeli plan to kill Khamenei. Trump later said there were no plans to kill him, at least not for now. Israel carried out strikes on Iran's Arak heavy water reactor in its latest attack on the country's nuclear program. The conflict began last Friday with a surprise wave of Israeli airstrikes targeting missile sites, senior officials, and nuclear scientists. A Washington-based Iranian human rights group said at least 639 people, including 263 civilians, have been killed in Iran and more than 1,300 wounded. In retaliation, Iran has fired hundreds of missiles and drones, killing at least 24 people in Israel and wounding hundreds. Turning to the regime in Washington, farmers, cattle ranchers, and hotel and restaurant managers breathed a sigh of relief last week when President Donald Trump ordered a pause to immigration raids that were disrupting those industries and scaring foreign-born workers off the job. There was finally a sense of calm, said Rebecca Shee, CEO of the American Business Immigration Coalition. Well, that respite didn't last long. On Wednesday, Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, declared there will be no safe spaces for industries who harbor violent criminals or purposely try to undermine ICE efforts. Worksite enforcement remains a cornerstone of our efforts to safeguard public safety, national security, and economic stability. The flip-flop baffled businesses trying to figure out the government's actual policy, and she says now there's fear and worry once more. That's not a way to run business when your employees are at this level of stress and trauma, she said. Trump campaigned on a promise to deport millions of immigrants working in the United States illegally, an issue that has long fired up his GOP base. The crackdown intensified a few weeks ago when Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, gave the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement a quota of 3,000 arrests a day, up from 650 a day in the first 5 months of Trump's second term. Suddenly, ICE seemed to be everywhere. We saw ICE agents on farms pointing assault rifles at cows, illegal cows, and removing half the workforce, said she, whose coalition represents 1,700 employers and supports increased legal immigration. One ICE raid left a New Mexico dairy with just 20 workers, down from 55. You can't turn off cows, said Beverly Idsinga, the executive director of the Dairy Producers of New Mexico. They need to be milked twice a day, fed twice a day. Incidentally, Rose Nyland said exactly the same thing in an episode of Golden Girls back in the 1980s, just in case you were wondering. To all the MAGA folks who are hearing this news, just ask yourself, was this what you voted for? ICE agents pointing guns at cows? The go broke dates for Medicare and Social Security's trust funds have been moved up as rising healthcare costs and new legislation affecting Social Security benefits have contributed to earlier projected depletion dates, according to an annual report released Wednesday. The go broke date, or the date at which the programs will no longer have enough funds to pay full benefits, was pushed up to 2033 for Medicare's Hospital Insurance Trust Fund, according to the new report from the program's trustees. Last year's report put the go-broke date at 2036. Meanwhile, Social Security's trust funds, which cover old age and disability recipients, will be unable to pay full benefits beginning in 2034 instead of last year's estimate of 2035. After that point, Social Security would only be able to pay 81% of benefits. The trustees say the latest findings show the urgency of needed changes to the programs, which have faced dire financial projections for decades. But making changes to the programs has long been politically unpopular, and lawmakers have repeatedly kicked Social Security and Medicare's troubling math to the next generation. That's the news at this hour. If you are watching the video version of our newscasts and news blasts on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. Download the Live 365 app to take PEP Radio with you wherever you go. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast right here on PEP Radio.